Have you ever felt that the kinder you are, the less respect people have for you? That the more you try to please, the more others ignore you, test you, use you? Maybe you can't put it into words, but you feel it in your body. In the tension of swallowing a response you wanted to give, in the discomfort of realizing that your voice is not heard, in the frustration of seeing manipulative, cold, and even cruel people being respected, while you who just wanted peace are constantly stepped on. But what if I told you that this is not a coincidence, that there is a logic behind it, a dark, uncomfortable, but true logic? Machiavelli wrote over years ago that it is better to be feared than loved when you cannot be both. And however cold or even cruel that may sound, the reality is that the world we live in responds more to fear than to kindness. Not because people are naturally evil, but because the human mind respects boundaries, not promises. It admires strength, not submission. And we are not talking about becoming a tyrant, a manipulator, or a narcissist. We are talking about something much deeper, about understanding that being good is not enough, that being kind without knowing how to impose respect is like bleeding in the ocean. Sooner or later, the sharks will smell it. Maybe you are at that point right now, tired of being ignored, of giving too much, of feeling like you are always in the background. Maybe you are wondering, how can I be respected without becoming someone I hate? How can I show strength without losing my essence? This video is for you. Here, we will unmask the illusion that kindness is enough. We will explore what psychology says about fear, respect, and authority. And with the help of Machiavelli, we will discover how to transform your presence into something that others do not dare to ignore. Because in the real world, those who do not set boundaries are pushed to the abyss. If you are ready to look in the mirror and finally understand why you are treated this way, keep watching. What comes next may change the way you position yourself forever. People do not respect kindness in itself. They respect what it represents when accompanied by strength. The mistake is in thinking that being good is enough, as if treating well, being kind, avoiding conflicts, and sacrificing for others would automatically make you valued. But the human brain does not work that way. Respect does not arise from intention. It arises from the perception of authority. And authority, my dear, is built with posture, with firmness, and yes, with a certain degree of fear. Psychology has long shown that human beings react to fear with attention. When someone imposes clear boundaries, speaks with conviction, and does not hesitate to withdraw from abusive situations, the message conveyed is simple: not with me. And the other person's brain understands this as a barrier, a territory with an electric fence, a field where one does not tread without caution. Now think of the opposite. People who say yes when they mean no, who explain too much, who smile to avoid conflict, who remain silent to keep the peace. In the eyes of an observer, this person does not convey security. They convey permission. And where there is too much permission, abuse is born. Fear and respect are connected by an invisible but powerful thread, and it is not about threatening, shouting, or acting aggressively. That is disguised weakness. True psychological strength lies in self-control, in firm silence, in a gaze that does not need to justify its existence, in the simple act of saying no without a tremor in the voice. Machiavelli was not suggesting that the ruler be cruel for pleasure. He was warning of a human fact. People quickly forget favors, but they never forget who makes them think twice before crossing the line. This applies to political leaders, yes, but it also applies to you in your work, in your friendships, in your relationships. Those who do not understand this dynamic spend their lives trying to be liked, but they will never be taken seriously. And perhaps now you are wondering, does that mean being good is wrong? No, but there is a dilemma, and that is what we will explore next. In the next part, we will talk about one of the greatest internal conflicts people face, the dilemma of kindness, how to know when your kindness has turned into weakness, and what to do when you realize you are being exploited precisely for trying to be fair. Get ready to face the mirror. The truth will hurt, but it will also set you free. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Maybe no one ever taught you this. Maybe you grew up hearing that being a good person was enough, that it was enough to treat others with empathy, to help whenever possible, to put others' needs before your own, that the world would return the same to you. But the reality is different. In the real world, kindness without discernment becomes bait, and predators, yes, they exist, sniff this out like a dog smells fear. There is a brutal, silent, and cruel dilemma. The more you try to be good, the more vulnerable you become. And this corrodes because you start to wonder, is the problem me? Am I being too nice? But if I stop being this way, will I be betraying who I am? It is at this point that many get stuck because they believe that hardening is corrupting oneself. But here's the truth. No one told you. There is no true kindness without strength. A kindness that does not know how to protect itself, that does not set boundaries, that does not recognize when it is being exploited, is not virtue. It is naivety. It is a psychological trap created to keep good people trapped in roles of emotional servants. And this trap has a name: validation dependency. You get used to being the nice one, the one who gives in, the one who listens, the one who understands, the one who forgives, even when the other does not deserve it. You confuse being peaceful with being passive, and little by little you are swallowed by unbalanced relationships where only you give in, only you donate, only you care. Psychology calls this self-abandonment. You emotionally abandon yourself to sustain the image of someone good, pleasant, loved. But the cost is extremely high. You lose the respect of others, yes, but worse, you lose respect for yourself. You need to understand being good is not being weak, but being good without wisdom is the fastest path to pain. And Machiavelli knew this. He didn't want you to become cruel. He wanted you to understand human nature, and human nature respects those who know how to defend themselves. The question that remains now is how to do this without crossing the line, how to inspire respect, even fear, without falling into the hatred of others or becoming what you despise the most. This is exactly what we will explore in the next part. Who Machiavelli was and why he may be the mentor you need to learn to protect yourself without losing yourself. Niccolò Machiavelli was an unrelenting observer of human nature, a man who lived surrounded by political betrayals, civil wars, corrupt courts, and false allies. He saw with his own eyes what most people still refuse to see. That power is not in the hands of the righteous, but in the hands of the clear-sighted, and it was from this brutal clarity that the prince, his most famous work, was born. Hated by some, revered by others, but ignored only by fools. Machiavelli was not a monster as many believe. He was, in fact, a radical realist. While others wrote about how rulers should be, he wrote about how they actually are. He understood that in a world governed by interests, naive idealism is an invitation to failure. Those who wish to govern, whether a state or their own life, need to understand the game behind the game. When he says that it is safer to be feared than loved, he is not promoting gratuitous cruelty. He is saying that the love of others is unstable, conditional, fragile. People love you when you benefit them, when you satisfy their interests. But that love evaporates at the first sign of conflict, at the first no you dare to say. Fear, on the other hand, when used wisely, creates boundaries. It establishes a margin of respect, an invisible barrier that prevents abuse, manipulation, and disloyalty. Machiavelli saw fear not as a weapon of destruction, but as a wall of protection. The leader or the individual who does not inspire any fear will sooner or later be betrayed, because without fear there is no caution, and without caution human beings reveal their worst selves. He also warned about balance. Fear must be measured, because a ruler who is only feared but hated creates fertile ground for revolts. True power lies in being respected, and respect is built with a precise combination of firmness, strategy, and self-control. Machiavelli advocated for surgical coldness, not unchecked brutality. A leader who is swayed by hatred loses control. A man who commands through fear wisely keeps everyone alert, and no one dares to underestimate him. Now stop and think. How does this apply to your life? Are you governing your own existence, or are you letting others dictate the rules? Have you been the one who sets boundaries or the one who is tested until losing patience? The answer lies in how you impose yourself. And this is what we will talk about next. How to be feared without being hated. How to build such solid personal authority that people think twice before disrespecting you. Not because you shout, but because your presence already commands silence. In the next section, we will delve into the true art of authority. Stay tuned. This is where everything begins to change. There is a vast difference between being feared and being hated. And if you don't know how to walk this fine line, you risk falling into one of the two extremes that destroy any power relationship. Passivity that invites abuse, or tyranny that generates revolt. True authority lies in balance. And believe me, it is an art that few master. Being feared does not mean being aggressive. It does not mean being violent, shouting, humiliating, or controlling through constant fear. That is not respect. It is terror. And terror always has an expiration date. Sooner or later, it turns against those who imposed it. Machiavelli knew this. He wrote that a ruler must avoid being hated at all costs because hatred is a silent poison. People can endure fear, but they cannot endure humiliation for long. So, the secret lies here. You need to be respected to the point that people do not dare to cross the boundaries you set, but you also need to be fair enough that they do not wish to bring you down behind your back. How does this apply to you? It means acting with clarity, with posture, with coherence. You need to make people understand without needing to explain that there is a price for disrespect, that your words carry weight, that your absence is felt, that your presence is not something to be taken for granted. This is not built overnight. It starts with small gestures, saying no firmly, stepping away from toxic conversations without justifying yourself, not repeating explanations to those who have already understood but insist on testing your limits. It is about claiming your emotional space and making it clear through actions that you will not be shaped by the will of others. Psychology proves it. People who exercise authority silently without resorting to direct confrontation generate more respect in the long run. It is the so-called latent power, the kind that is present even when not exercised. The type of power that makes others think twice before acting, not because you intimidate them, but because they know you do not tolerate disrespect. And that is the key to being feared without being hated, showing that you are in control not of others, but of yourself. Those who master their emotions, their reactions, and their limits with serenity and firmness command more respect than any shout or threat. But what if that is not enough? What if, even trying to assert yourself, you still feel that you are being tested, used, or ignored? This is where we enter the most sensitive territory of all, the psychological, the internal space where patterns of submission, fear of confrontation, and difficulty in establishing real boundaries are born. In the next part, we will dive even deeper. We will explore how your mind and your emotional history may be preventing you from being respected, and more importantly, how to break this cycle and start building a new identity, stronger, clearer, and unshakable. Now that you understand the importance of being respected, being firm, and inspiring the right amount of fear, it's time to look within. Because it's not enough to just comprehend all of this intellectually. If deep down you still fear bothering others, disappointing them, or being rejected for asserting yourself, the root of the problem lies within you. And that's where true transformation resides. Many people carry since childhood the conditioning to please in order to survive. People who were taught, even if subtly, that they would only be loved if they were nice. Who learned that saying no was synonymous with selfishness, that contradicting was impolite, and that disagreeing was a reason for emotional punishment. And the result? Adults who bend over backwards to please, who silence themselves to keep the peace, who accept less than they deserve because they think setting boundaries is a way to lose love. This is psychological poison, an unconscious script that turns you into an emotional slave. And the worst part, the more you repeat this pattern, the more it becomes entrenched. With every yes you say when you want to say no, you send the world the message that your will doesn't matter. Each time you avoid conflict, you allow injustice to grow. With every person you forgive without the other feeling remorse, you validate the abuse. What needs to be clear is that respect starts within you. There is no external authority without internal firmness. You will not inspire respect if you do not respect yourself. You will not set boundaries if you do not believe you deserve to be protected. And no one will take you seriously if you constantly doubt your own worth. The construction of this new identity begins with small decisions, starting to observe where you silence yourself out of fear, in what situations you diminish yourself to fit in, with whom you feel obligated to be someone you are not. One by one, these situations need to be dismantled, not with anger, with strategy, with presence, with truth. You will notice that as you begin to assert yourself, some people will be bothered. They will call you rude, cold, arrogant. But this is not about you. It's about them not knowing how to control you anymore. Every change in posture destabilizes those who fed off your passivity. And yes, you will lose people along the way. But believe me, it is liberating to lose those who only knew how to exploit you. When you align with your internal truth, the external world responds. People who once ignored you start to listen. Relationships that once drained you either dissolve or transform. You stop begging for love and start attracting respect because now you are no longer overly accessible. And what is not easy to have always generates more value. But even with all this, there is still a missing piece, something that ties together everything we've discussed so far. You have understood the psychology, the philosophy, the behavior, but you still need to answer the final question. How to balance this new strength without becoming what you detest the most. How to maintain lucidity, respect, and integrity, even while commanding with firmness. That is what we will explore now. There comes a time when you need to make a decision. Either you keep trying to please the world hoping that people will finally see your worth, or you stop begging for emotional crumbs and start behaving like someone who deserves respect. Because the truth is simple but brutal. No one will give you what you don't demand for yourself. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to turn into a tyrant. But you need to learn to stand up for yourself, to raise boundaries like invisible walls, to look into the eyes of those who try to manipulate you and maintain the firm silence that says, "Not with me, not anymore." That is true strength, the kind that doesn't need to shout, that doesn't show off, but that is felt in the air, in your posture, in your gaze, and this strength begins the moment you stop trying to be loved and start demanding to be respected. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He saw that people's love is fickle, conditional, full of hidden interests. But respect, when well built, lasts. It sustains itself. It protects. And that is what you need to seek. Not the acceptance of others, but your own inner sovereignty. From the moment you understand that being good is not enough, that your kindness needs a sword and shield, everything changes. You don't become a bitter person. You become a whole person, someone who gives because they want to, not because they are afraid of losing, someone who loves deeply but does not accept being used, someone who forgives but does not forget, someone who knows how to withdraw at the exact moment and who, for that reason, is never underestimated again. And now, I want to know from you, in what area of your life do you feel you need to start asserting yourself, work, family, relationships? Write in the comments. Your answer can create space for others to reflect as well. Change begins when we acknowledge where we are being weak. And if this message resonated with you, if any part of this video hit you like a real punch, then you need to keep going. The next video is just as important as this one. Don't skip it. Don't put it off, because understanding the psychology of respect is just the beginning. The journey is only starting.